Yep, that counts just as good. I appreciate the fact that you took the time. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. Checking on certification of open meeting law requirements. Everything was announced, so we're good? Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Roll call of committee members, if you could start us out, Richard.
Rich is here. Rich is here.
Kevin's here.
He's here.
Adam's Dunn's here.
Gene Galazinski's here.
I got a question.
Yes.
Who's doing minutes then? Was that being done here with me? Okay, okay. I didn't know. Sorry.
I'll go back through the video
Okay.
and do minutes that way, and when there's decisions, I'll have all the information marked based on the video.
Thank you for doing that, Jack. Appreciate that. With that, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second. This is Gene.
Thank you. All in favor of adoption of agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition, since there's none, we'll approve the agenda. We'll take a look at the approval of the January 7th, 2025 regular meeting minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to read them and go through them. We had a really good meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion.
Excuse me, the minutes. Second, to approve the minutes? Second, to approve the minutes.
I wasn't here, but I'll go second.
All you had to do was read, Rich. We're good. All right.
Just have
you
to
gotta-
get those minutes signed by Renee, since she's not present today.
All right, that sounds good. All in favor of approval of the regular meeting minutes from the January 7th meeting?
Aye.
Those in opposition? Meeting minutes are approved from the January 7th meeting. Public comment time, the call-in number is 715-538-1894. I'll repeat that number for those people listening, 715-538-1894. With that, we'll get started with the committee reports, Wisconsin Great River Road update with Gene. Take it over, Gene.
Good morning, everyone. Just a brief update. The Wisconsin Great River Road just returned from the Travel and Adventure Show in Chicago, Illinois. And what that is there's thousands of people that come from all over to chit chat with traveling locations, people that help people get their tourism things if they want to go swimming or fishing in other places and around the state, in the counties, country. And it was extreme. It was a success, and we were very, very happy. I unfortunately don't have the numbers to provide to you, as many people as they contacted, but I will get you that at next meeting. And it just goes to show you that spending time in the Chicago market, Illinois, that surrounds, and I know Trempealeau County does this, these people are only a couple hours away to come to our area, so it makes a lot of sense. Hopefully we'll be able to do it next year. And our partners were Cassville and Grant County Tourism. The last couple boxes we always hold back for the visitor guide, the 2024 visitor guide, and they were taken. You'll see on the agenda, Dave will talk about the DOT project, so I won't. However, I've been in constant contact with the village of Trempealeau, and they're doing a resolution, February 6th, in regards to the bridge, because we don't want the bridge shut down totally for approximately 2.5 years. Isaac Pooler is the village administrator for the village of Trempealeau, and he's been in contact with Representative Steve Doyle. It's my understanding that Steve has been in contact with Senator Markline to see how funding can help with this. Our new visitor guide is in the process of being reviewed and will be done and printed by March 1st. We're waiting to hear back from the National Scenic Highway or National Highway Administration to see if we will receive a grant that we wrote last year. You know, we don't know how things are going because of the switching of administration. So hopefully we didn't get lost in translation. And our chairperson for the commission will be in contact with Senator Baldwin's office to see how things are going, if she can give us an update. We also are applying for a GEM grant, which is due April 1st. We will be doing a booth at WIGCOT, Wisconsin Governor's Conference on Tourism, which is March 9th through the 11th at La Crosse. I encourage you all, if you could come to understand a little bit more of tourism, we invite you to come on down. And the last thing is Senator Brad Paff has been assigned or approved, if you will, to be part of the Mississippi River Parkway Commission. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Appreciate that information. Is Dave going to be here?
He is not. I'm going to give his update.
All right. Did you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Becky.
No, you're fine. Oh, did
You
you?
wanted to get moved up?
You,
Okay. Yeah, I see he's here. He's on the agenda.
I missed that. Yep, sorry. I'll just touch on a few things. I'm sorry, Jean, I wasn't sure that, I didn't hear everything that you were saying. I know you were talking about the road closure, and I wanted to, he and Dave put together a resolution for that, and that's on the agenda coming up here.
You bet.
I would just mention that, Dave and I have been working on this innovation grant funding that's available. And so we are interested in looking at the potential for planning grants that are available right now, due at the end of the month. I've reached out to all of the area communities, that'll be the villages and cities, and talking to them about potential for looking at a planning grant. You put in for this planning grant, and in July, then there's a pot of money that's going to be available statewide for purposes, again, of looking at innovation grant. It's trying to get communities to partner and collaborate together to save costs. So there's various projects or areas of focus that communities can look at, and so we're working with the communities to find out if there's any way that we can look at some of those things right now. The scenic overlook, I know overlooks, Dave talked about that in the past. I would just say the Buena Vista up towards Osseo, that has been cleared by the highway department, and it's beautiful. It's just a great opening there. I'm going to continue to work with the highway department and DOT and talking about the shape of the actual drive. There's a lot of bad potholes in that area. So we're going to talk about, working with DOT to see if we can get that resurfaced. The overlook down by Arcadia has been completed as well by our highway department. The landowner that owns the area below is willing to clear trees as well. Didn't look like there's been a lot removed yet, so Dave was going to follow up and just making sure that that's moving forward as well, but it's a good start. And then the visitor's guide, Dave and I have been working on locations, where those are going to go, so we've had some conversations about that. And outreach, into Jean's point, when we had our GEM grant meeting recently, there was a nice survey that was completed by the group, by the marketing company, Pilch and Barnett, and found out that Trempealeau County is pretty well known in this region across the western part of the state. One area that it looked like we weren't well known in is the Chicago area. So I'd like to kind of focus some of our visitor guides to go to the Chicagoland kind of area, southern Wisconsin, to try to get a little bit more info out to them. So that's what Dave's been working on. He's got a lot of different initiatives. The university piece, that's encouraging, a lot of things moving forward on that area. And right now, he's at the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development meeting conference. So he's learning, bringing back some information for us from that.
All right, then, if there's nothing additional with the Economic and Development and Tourism Report, we'll go to the resolution pertaining to Wisconsin Department of Transportation proposed Black River Tank Creek Bridge projects, discussion and possible action. Would you guys like me to read the resolution so we've got it entered in? We can go through and do that and then have discussion on it. Urging Wisconsin DOT to maintain traffic on the Wisconsin Highway 35, whereas the Wisconsin Great River Road, WI Highway 35, stretches more than 250 miles along the western portion of Wisconsin, traveling through 33 historic river towns, including the village of Trempealeau, and whereas visitors driving the Great River Road in Trempealeau County contributed significantly to the estimated $41.4 million in direct visitor spending in the county in 2023, and whereas the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, WSDOT, is considering replacement of 2 bridges over the Black River and 1 over the Tank Creek along WI Highway 35 between Holman and Trempealeau in 2027, and WSDOT's preferred alternative is to construct these new bridges with full closure of the highway for a period of 14 to 16 months, and whereas with DOT's preferred alternative would be to detour traffic around the village of Trempealeau, resulting in significant and costly delays in travel times and emergency responses, and potentially significant lost revenues to the businesses who depend on the travelers using the Wisconsin Great River Road, Wisconsin 35, and whereas WSDOT has considered alternatives that would allow a substantial portion of the proposed work to be done while maintaining traffic on the stretch of WIS Highway 35 between Holman and Trempealeau, and thus allowing visitors easier access to Trempealeau and quicker emergency response times. Now, be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board urges WSDOT to consider the significant impacts of the proposed full closure of WIS Highway 35 would have in terms of lost business, increased travel times, and increased emergency response time, and further urges WSDOT to construct the bridges in a manner that maintains traffic on this stretch to the fullest extent possible during construction. Introduced by Parks, Tourism, and Economic Development. Is there discussion on the resolution? Is there a motion for the resolution?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by
This is
Rich.
Jean, I make the motion.
Thank you, Gene.
This is Buzz, I'll second it.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just make a motion to send it to full county board to support the resolution.
And that's,
Somebody needs to turn the mic on. Kevin, we can't hear that.
Sorry about that. I just made the motion to earlier. My motion was to send it to full county board, supporting that resolution.
Thank you.
any additional discussion?
I just want to thank us for doing that and then passing it on to the county board. It's extremely important for the whole county. So thank you very much.
Seeing no additional discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition, motion passes. We will send the resolution on the to the WSDOT to maintain traffic in Wisconsin on Highway 35. Thank you.
That's good.
Okay, next on the list, Jack, we got the park report if you got it ready.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, his is on. I haven't heard Renee yet.
Let's get it off here. So there is a few items to take care of today. So stuff that isn't motionable, I'll be brief, but I do want to just keep people updated with various amount of things that we're trying to go through. So we did end up doing fairly well for our Ashley campsite revenue. We made upwards to $24,000. So the price increase was a big success for us revenue-wise. Last year, our target revenue was 38,000, so I don't think we identified a new target. So for 2025, this puts us at a great spot with making that initial revenue for Ashley. And we'll continue to kind of reevaluate to see if that 3-year pricing plan is the right thing. But right now, that's kind of the plan I'm going off of. And if there is any changes, I'll come back to the committee. I identified 3 possible programs with UW Extension that they'll be doing out at Petrick Park. The last one, Outdoor Skills, is going to be more of a collaboration between them and I. And excited about it. That one will be about outdoor skills, and they'll have science camp and progressive safety beforehand. Did have HD tree service. Oh, you have something there, Buzz?
Yeah, just related to that, those are great, and thank you much for doing that. I was going over some of the grant requirements for DNR park development grants,
Yeah.
and one of the components to get you more points is exactly this. Is there some way we can incorporate that into our grant applications? And so we get those extra points when that day comes, working with Phil, that I don't know how that would be in trails and stuff.
To make
related
to make mention that we are programming at the park, kind of what you're saying for our Knowles Nelson grant application.
I think it's going to require something that some signage or some programming built right into the trail development to get those points.
Yeah, I
And
can
that's
definitely.
just something that,
I have
ahead.
to look more into the criteria. I have looked over it all, but I need to look at the questions in specific. We did have a great meeting with Grace Michelson's, Phil and I, before, I don't know if it was before last meeting, but we did end up meeting with the grant contact, which is a little bit out of the norm. But with them being in Eau Claire, and Phil and I kind of both being around that area, we were able to make an in-person meeting work, which I think was, hopefully they saw how much we're committed to the project with that. And it is a very lock-on funding, that's state playground funding. It's a very competitive process. So we did get awarded the rec pond right away last year, so keep that in mind, but yeah.
thank you, Jack.
Moving on to the park report, we did have HD tree service out to the park. Bob had suggested last committee meeting that we kind of look at that in the off season. I don't know if we've ever had a forestry service do some upkeep like that, or at least in a long time at the park. So I do think once HD tree service does get us a quote, I don't know if I've got to have that motion forward. There is a policy purchasing stuff that I'm becoming aware of in time. So we'll see with the quote. I'll kind of talk with people and see if we can't just do it or if it has to get kind of approved. But they should be able to come in at an under number. So I think we should be able to just go forward with having them do some work, mainly in that lower loop, to protect the safety of the campers. And that's kind of the main thing, as well as looking at that lower loop area where the dock's going to be going in and clearing that tree up. Kevin, I thought the comment you made about maintenance last meeting at the park was great. I'm starting to run into some more of that stuff with my playground training that I went through.
Just keep track of it so we know what we have to do, because that's a big deal.
Yep. So I've definitely been keeping that in mind this last month when we're going through plans and whatnot. So there will be no winter Rec Loop, we had a great meeting with Tom on Wednesday, the 29th. But there will be no winter rec loop kind of on that 6-acre property that was deeded to us in 21 due to liability concerns. Park ordinances, those will be looked at a little further on. We ended up not getting to that. And then we are doing an update on our park assets. There was, I think 2016 was the last time we had done any kind of asset listing, and over half of the stuff that was listed in 2016 wasn't listed at all. So this is all property in the open, making sure I'm compiling a pretty good list so that way if anything does ever happen, we have a little bit more in our insurance instead of just, I think we had somewhere between 15 and 20 items. There's a lot more than 15 to 20 items at the park if you just kind of go around. So I'll keep working on that. And that's for our county insurance property in the open. Just doing a refresher on that, I think, countywide. And then, let's see here. Working with Stanley Corrections. Met a great contact with BCE Enterprises. They can get me some cheap signage at a good quality. So that was great to make that connection. His name is Bill Huber, and he's kind of the sign guy that works with the inmates and got a few people under him. So it's great to run into somebody that can get us some reduced cost signs at the park, because there's definitely some upgrades needed to signage, which Amory will go over a few things, I think, in regards to septic a little bit later on. And then lastly, not in regards to Petrick Park, and I guess it's not a park, but we do own some land down in Trempealeau, and the committee had requested an update in December, and we did not, get further enough in the conversation. So we did end up getting a little further in the conversation. I can read the email that was sent to your packets as to kind of what my thoughts were, and then what the actual conversation was with FEMA. FEMA ended up transferring the conversation to Wisconsin Emergency Management. So there's some certain restrictions when it comes to deeds, and those flood restrictions back in early 2000, it was established that when we got those lots from FEMA. So my plan is to contact the village of Trempealeau and the Mississippi Valley Conservancy to see if they have any interest in the lots. Backup plan will go as follows, and Heather's response below if that doesn't work out. But I would love to get the committee's opinion on confirming that this is the correct process for the land by the Mississippi River. Considering that it's so far down, that's why we're looking more into it. But it is on the river, so there's kind of two sides to this coin. But this is kind of Heather's response from Wisconsin Emergency Management. As mentioned during our meeting, it would be possible to transfer the parcels to the village of Trempealeau or a qualified conservation organization such as Mississippi Valley Conservancy, potentially. I think all of these decisions have to kind of get ran through them first. Beyond letting the parcel return to their natural state, below are some potential reuse options. Parking lots with permeable surface, parks with open pavilions, benches, picnic tables, walking paths, permeable surfaces, some conservation uses, public restrooms, business truck parking, community gardens and informational signs, lease agreements for neighbors to have gardens and extended yards. FEMA approval will be required before any property is transferred or reuse actions take place. WEM, Wisconsin Emergency Services, will work with the county on any further actions to ensure they comply with FEMA deed restrictions placed on the acquired parcels. I'm happy to talk more when needed. So if anyone's got any questions on those lots or have any comments, I can take those now.
Any questions
Seems
for
that
Jack?
there's,
Go ahead, Buzz. Go
yeah,
ahead.
this Buzz. Jack, it appears that there's more uses down there than we may have originally thought. I don't know if that will entice Trempealeau or some Mississippi Valley Conservancy to maybe become more interested.
Right.
How are you planning to proceed with those discussions, I guess?
I don't know. I mean, I wanted to at least get the conversation going today and see what you guys had thought and kind of take your guys' considerations or opinions in my thoughts and reaching out further to these two, the village and, because Isaac did, the village administrator did want to know kind of what options were there. And my thought was Mississippi Valley Conservancy, because I did notice a sign pretty close to there in my time down there.
So Jack, this is Renee. I just have a question. So it's my understanding that the desire is to transfer this to the village of Trempealeau and giving them options of suggested options. And really, those kinds of things are out of our scope. Is that correct?
I'd say so, but it'd be more, I guess.
I understand completely.
The housing part, it wouldn't be my realm. I'd have to get some more info on how I would do that or how I would approach it. But I do think you're right. It is kind of out of our realm a little bit, for me at least.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to be a big plate.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Is that the area down by the old swamp bar? Is that?
Yeah, it's
area?
kind of, what is it called now?
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called, but it used to be called that.
Hungry Point
Oh,
Bar.
it's down by Hungry Point. Okay,
Yep.
okay.
I mean, I don't.
No, it's farther down, Rich. It's
It
down
is?
by the old swamp bar.
It's down by there?
Yeah.
The first lot is kind of right past Hungry Point, but the majority of them are
Nothing's
further
being
down.
maintained down there now, though.
No, neighbors have maintained it mostly, and the Marks and I did go down in there in September, and there is one lot. If we disc some soil up a little bit, some river oaks have the potential. We had the forester down there in August too, the DNR forester, and he had told me if you disc this up, there might be some river oak revival potential.
Emery has a comment.
Sure.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Emery Palmer. I had worked for Department of Land Management and worked with this property in the past, circa 2010. And just to give a little history, if it's not out there currently, at that point in time, those lots had been, for lack of a better term, neglected by the county. There hadn't been a lot of oversight occurring, and we had improvements that neighbors had put on those lots, and it was deemed at that point in time that it was kind of a liability to the county having ownership of those lots.
Right.
And we had pursued discussions back then with Mississippi Valley Conservancy and with Village of Trempealeau, at which point in time, I think those never took hold only because there was still issues on the property and we had to clean those up. But I just wanted to clarify that little bit of history that I know in past leadership, there was discussion of getting rid of that liability because of the monitoring that was required and the continued encroachment by others. So that was all. Thank you.
Yeah, and just the thought of, me, I think the person that was previously in my position used to check them more frequently. I don't personally find the time to go down to the lots once a week, once every 2 weeks. I probably make it down there, and I probably should go more 1 to 2 times a month, just because it's so far and there's quite a bit to do. I don't see it is it a priority, because when I have been there, usually I'm just rolling around some empty land and picking up some trash. There was a boat at the start of the new year, that I had to, kind of figure out who the landowner, who it belonged to, and learn that they were in what was it, assisted living at the time, and then someone else had to come move the boat. But one instance and over 1 year, and just not a ton that's kind of going down in there. From what I've seen with recreational use, there is better spots to access those lakes.
So I think, like, my question would be, like, I think some of the things that were suggested are not bad ideas, like a shelter or, picnic area, things like that. But it becomes also, is that a priority? And that's kind of like this committee. And we're, right now, I think, prioritizing Petrick Park and completing that project. I just think, if there's some, like you're talking about working with the Conservancy, sounds like makes sense to me. I would be surprised if the village would take it because of their own projects and trying to get those completed, but.
I agree, and the expense, wouldn't this be a
Right.
considerable expense if we were to take something on?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, I'd have to dig my notes out. Last year, the year before, or a couple years, one of the issues, and I believe that came from Wisconsin DNR, of the flooding, because that area does flood about buildings. So I think there's so many moving parts, and I agree with Becky and you, Renee, that on the top of our list, but perhaps down the line, it could be revisited.
Well, I guess I would chime in a little bit too. If there can be a beneficial use by another entity that encourages more tourism or open space activities, uh, that would be a benefit to the county as a whole. Be that Mississippi River, Mississippi Valley Conservancy or the village, but sounds like it could be developed as open park space for day use with that list of stuff. And if that's something one of those is interested in, or more of a habitat restoration on the form of the Conservancy, Jack, I guess I hope you're able to work through some ideas with one of them to get them excited about the property.
Yeah, it sounds like I'd have more potential with the Conservancy, so maybe I'll start there.
Anything additional? Anything additional, Jack, on it?
Nope.
Is it okay if we go to park priorities then, Jack?
Absolutely. All right. I do have a table here, so did everyone get a chance? Everyone get a chance to view that? If not, I can pull it up. Basically, just have a internal kind of park project that I'd be working on with the groundskeepers when we've got some time from our normal day-to-day suggestions, with like introducing horse camping once again and meeting with a group, UW Extension, some 4-H members, now the new rodeo individuals that we have. That'd be on March 7th, and I think that would be another great addition to the park. Remember, we're trying to build this power of 10 things to do at the park to keep people around by the time we get that playground in. And then the numerical campground signage, if you've noticed, you've probably been to campgrounds before and see that they're well marked and you can clearly identify how to get there, and then you go to Petrick Park and you don't necessarily see that. So that's going to be a big project for the marks this year, and then me giving them the materials to work with. Water fountain, had a meeting with the health department and met about some code things that we have been audited in 21 and 24 about, and one of them I had thought was the water fountain, but actually it was not on there. So I guess we are not required to have a fountain. I think when we met in 24 with our state rep Ted, who did the audit, he had mentioned that if you got it, it should be operational. So we do have a water fountain out there that is not operational. And I was trying to work with Simmons and Aberley to get their suggestions on what they thought. They thought a wall-mounted fountain would work best, and it ended up being $7,800. So now we're looking at, since it's not a code requirement, do we either remove the fountain or do what we can to get it to be operational? So that's kind of an internal decision that I'll be working through. Would appreciate some suggestions on that if you have any.
Is that near the restrooms, Jack?
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of a assumed convenience when most people go to the restroom that they grab a drink of water.
right, and
mean-
that's why we would be dealing with potential removal. And yeah, I don't know. I like the thought of getting it running again, but the plumber had some reservations about that, and then that's what ended up leading to the talks about the wall-mounted fountain. So I'll
think
continue,
maybe
yeah, it's ongoing, I'd say right now, but I need
Well, I'm
more
wondering if
info.
some considerations, Jack, sorry, I'm wondering if some considerations would be the cost either way. And say you do get it fixed, what's going to be the maintenance in the future? What's the potential problems, versus what is the cost of removal?
Right, right, and it's kind of an intricate system, like I've been meeting about the electric heater and the furnace and just heating the whole restroom facility in general, and the salt, septic, propane heat. It's there's a lot of different moving parts, and it's the same thing with some of our water lines that we'll get to later here. But yeah, it's kind of an ongoing situation. I did want to mention it to the committee because it's probably the one on here that I'm the least solid about.
Jack, this is Jean. I mean, you're just hammering this, and things are so good, and you're super busy. Is there a possibility with the people that you're working with, UW Extension and the other schools in the area, that there could be an unpaid internships that could help you with things, and then the student could put their information and use it in their college courses? Would that be something that could help? And again, internship, not paid
Well,
by
not
the county.
yeah, not necessarily. I think I am working at a good pace, but I do need to learn how to scale things back effectively. But there is there is some potential, I think, with just the changing of this position in general. Someone with my background is going to probably try to get more things done. At least me in general is going to try to get things done. And I don't know necessarily if with land management they had some conservation things that they had to do. So it's a totally different backgrounds, and we'll get there eventually. This is all new for the county, but I do appreciate the comment, Gene.
I would say probably agree with Renee and just saying it would be, to make that decision is looking at the costs and the being able to weigh the benefit versus the use, I guess, and the cost.
Yeah. So we'll kind of stay onto the kind of the items here, but dog dispensers and donation boxes. There's some things that I've seen at the park where worked with the city of Toma, worked with the city of Chippewa Falls. I've been around quite a few parks with WPRA. I'll be attending their conference this week, and just when I go through the park, there's some certain things that I see at most parks that I don't see at Petrick. So identifying those kind of things that we can do that are attainable. So donation boxes and dog dispensers. I'd like those donation boxes to get painted by some local maybe middle school, since we're going to be reaching out to high schools for collaboration on some project elements. Maybe some middle school art classes can paint these donation boxes. And then Modudoc installation in April, and then we'll be working on septic proposal with Amory. That'll be an ongoing process. And then, Emery. And then water lines would be on the back end. And then we do have a suggestion on how we would proceed with that, but it might have to be an RFP bid process. Probably will end up having to do some of that so we can get the project elements out. And then Tom Shank fencing project, we'll be working with Tom. This would be an ongoing process in '25. This was a kind of stipulation that was in the deed for '21 through '24, and then we ended up writing Tom a letter. So this is all kind of, we're working with him on this, and that letter kind of goes with that, and we had a great meeting on the 29th, and he seemed to like the progression on the project. And then we do need some more security cameras. There is one in our claw shelter, and then one in our restroom facility, or at our restroom facility going outward. When we do get that dock in there, definitely anticipating one in the lower loop pointed towards the dock, not towards tent sites, and then maybe identify a second location for the second one. But I think four would be adequate at this time for security cameras. Did we have any questions on the potential projects? Okay. And then
Comment for
yeah.
you, Jack. Would it be possible again, sometime in this year's schedule, that we do that on-site tour after you've been doing some things? And if you have questions, again, I thought that was effective for us to understand what you needed to do,
Right.
and to see what the priorities looked like. And I know if I looked at the water fountain and it made Trempealeau County look bad, I'd be more motivated to have it repaired.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
removed. So if we could do that,
We do have a beautiful facility with that cloth shelter.
Right.
And now have added heat to it. So I think we don't necessarily have to meet here. We could use that cloth a little bit more and heat it up.
right, and what we'd be looking at doing is just what we did last year. I thought that was a good habit. If we can schedule annually to be at the park and know the park,
Yeah.
it'd be so much better when we're doing priorities.
Yeah, maybe a September. This always on September we go to
That
the
would
park.
be ideal. Then we give you time to get some stuff done, then it would look pretty good.
That'd be after Ashley too, so
Awesome.
it'd be a good time. I think we can look to make that happen.
Jack, this is Renee. Just have a real quick question. Is there a water, I'm sure there are water spigots. I'm not as familiar with the park as I should be, I admit. So I'm sure there are water spigots with some of those sites. Is there a water spigot right by the restrooms there where the drinking fountain is?
The closest water spigot would be on site one. So I guess there is potential if we, like I said, I'm gonna have to do some more digging on this water fountain about what I would want to do with it. But that is a good point, Renee, because we could possibly look at a different location that's close to there. If the current one is too much of a problem. And I'm not gonna make any decision that's on my own.
Sure.
I'll make sure to communicate options.
Sure, thank you.
All right. Anything else? So those are basically, just have some other priorities here. There are some things I wanted to mention, communication with Tom Shank. But we are starting to think about fundraising and collaboration development. And I did reach out to 3 county board members, Renee and Rich were one of them, as well as Kellen and John, and talking about park fundraising, starting to look at ideas. And I have gotten kind of a stakeholders list together that I'm confident about, and I think it's a great start to the conversation. for park fundraising stuff. So we'll continue to work with that. But another part of fundraising is this internal development idea to help save costs idea. And this is going to be a challenge when it comes to playground equipment, but something that I don't think isn't unattainable because of the skills that people like the Cardinal Manufacturing have, and just the technology that they're starting to get at some of these places. You see some of the projects that they're putting out. If they're going to help us with some steps, with some lumber, I don't think that's something that they wouldn't be able to do, but we are going to have to see. So it's going to be some type of meeting, I'm guessing, where people from these tech ed and art departments have an opportunity to come to the county and have an informational session where we can vent out some ideas. And it starts with kind of an email that gets sent out to them. So that is something that we wanted to mention today, and I think I included that in your guys' packet. So what are your guys' first thoughts of collaborating with the high schools and the art departments on some of those internal park project initiatives?
Having experience with it,
Renee,
excuse me. Having experience with that, which we did a lot of work with Petrick back probably 25 years ago, we need to make sure that we define specifics, what's going to be accomplished, and try to get a schedule as far as, because the high school groups enjoy working out there, they enjoy adding to the community. The challenge is to make sure the direction is proper and that they're on the schedule that you guys, Jack, you would deem, because that's where we've been in trouble in the past. There's been no direction. There's been no establishment of a deadline when we needed to get it done so that the individual groups can prioritize. And you do have to make sure it fits the skills that are available. They can do some outstanding stuff, but there's just not time sometime to get that outstanding stuff completed. Be great to bring them in and try to get them to work together would be an ideal situation. So I like the idea of the meeting, but you got to give them some motivation to get in here and do some of that. A lot of times the planning is, of course, scheduled for a lot of the school activities is planned during the August and September time of the year so that they can plan out what they're doing project-wise. It gives them a chance to keep the students involved and highly engaged in some of those projects that you're speaking of.
Maybe. That's a good
Jack,
point.
this is Jean.
Sounds good, Gene. What's up?
Sorry,
You're good.
just quickly, do you, and I didn't look in my notes, does the kids in the county still have to do like so many hours for their community service time that go as part of their graduation?
I mean, that's what I've heard, but I don't know if that's still a requirement.
Gene, it is a
I'll
requirement
do
for
some
some.
checking on it.
It is a requirement, Kevin
For
had
some of
mentioned.
the high schools, I know Blair and Arcadia does have it, that they're required for community service.
That would be fabulous to help. Oh, and I guess that's where I was talking about before too, of the kids. I think it's a great idea, Jack.
Thank
Jack, this is Renee. I think you mentioned the tech ed classes. And I think Kevin, if I misunderstood him, Kevin, were you talking mostly about the art classes? I'm wondering if the tech ed classes could have a lot of things to offer in a lot of varieties that might be needed out there. Where are all of our tech ed classes? Whitehall?
Yeah,
I
I've
think
got the
Ottawa-
7 school districts established. It's Osseo Fairchild, Blair Taylor, GT, Arcadia, Independence, Gilmington, and then there's 2 more. Yeah, Levistrum and one other. So I've got contacts on an email draft that's been sitting in my email for months, and I'm just waiting for the right time to send it. But you know, thinking about how a teacher goes through their schedule, that's a great point that Kevin made. Maybe we push that meeting back, but we've been pushing stuff back enough to where sometimes timing-wise, you don't always get perfect timing, unfortunately, and conversation just needs to get started, I think, in some aspects. So there's 2 sides of the coin on a lot of this stuff.
Jack, this is Buzz. I think when you bring them in, you ought to have a really specific agenda
Yeah.
and don't shock them.
I don't think we go and
what-
send in that email until we get those drawings from Phil.
Well,
We-
that's what
we
I
got
was
that
getting
pushed
at.
last meeting.
Yeah. We've got to have something very specific for them to react to make sure it's in their various wheelhouses.
Right.
If you're going to get somebody to, so to speak, get excited about participating in this, and there's going to be cost with them doing it too. We've got to be ready to demonstrate that we do have the cost for materials. I think, I'm pretty sure Cardinal Manufacturing functions on a for-profit business
Right.
model.
Yep.
I don't know about the other schools.
So I guess identifying items with Phil, when we get those drawings is gonna be a key. And thankfully we got that push to, for those landscape architects to move forward a little bit quicker than I think Phil was anticipating. And I'm glad that we did that, because now we can, hopefully get this conversation going a little bit more. But I just want to make sure they have enough time to do the drawings as well as they need to be done, because those things do take time.
What's the time schedule for the committee to get a look at those before they would go out?
It was
this kind of-
April, but you guys had pushed it last meeting, so I hope to, push Phil to try to get it for March.
Does that open up a grant application opportunity in 2025 then?
There's tons with grants out there. I've identified a lot of different avenues we could go down, but it's just what works best for my schedule, and how I can fit some stuff in. There's some snowmobile stuff that always needs to get done in April. The Knowles Nelson this year in May. So we'll continue to work through that. Yeah.
Is Knowles Nelson the big grant that would cover
Yeah. Yep.
a major portion of part? So that having a May deadline really pushes us to our next meeting to have something.
Not necessarily. They just want to see the projects going in a good direction from the meeting we had with Grace. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be done. They just want to see timeline and that sort of thing. All right. Any other comments about the email to the tech ed and art departments and for our high schools in the county? Okay. Then just working through some outdoor recreation. Was involved with the meeting with the university and Dave this last week on kind of some trail development stuff. That's going to be a long process, so this is kind of the first step. And then review of agreements, ordinances, policies with Corp Council. Special event agreements, we now have 2 legal documents for special events. One will be hopefully motioned later on in the agenda, and then we do have that one from the rodeo that will be, I'll take my corrections that I've made to this event agreement and go back to our big document and make sure those are ready for the summer. So, and then the 5th thing was campground pricing and marketing, and continuing to look at that, market things and trying to get our park filled.
All right, thank you, Jack. Thanks for the established list of priorities. With that concluded, we'll continue on to presentation on Highcliff Septic Proposal by Emery Palmer.
Emery, can I say something quick before you get going? Just wanted to thank Emery for, coming forward when he did. I was pretty fresh in my position and wasn't totally sure on the direction of the project, and he had a clear, established vision. So really do commend Highcliff for that. I think they did a great job in looking at the proposal, and I just wanted to, give my thoughts before he shared his. So thank you.
Thanks for the kind words, Jack. I assume that a copy of the report went out in the committee packets, so rather than bog you down with too many details. I'm going to kind of give you a 1,000-foot overview, talk through what happened out at the park, what we looked at, and then kind of entertain some discussion from you. So after meeting with Jack, we came up with kind of a plan that really what we need to do is have a clear understanding of what our resources are from a septic standpoint out there and what our available areas and options are moving forward. So that being said, there was some additional site information that had not yet been collected through the other surveying and planning that had been done, where we established locations of the existing infrastructure on the park, located the electrical hookups, the water spigots, et cetera, that were out there. So that's available on the maps provided in the report for future planning. We identified 4 different areas for potential future septic placement, and we're able to prioritize those based upon soils available and assumptions of what, when a full design comes through, will be available. So all of that being said, there was essentially 4 areas that we identified as potential future expansion and or replacement areas, and we also did an evaluation of the existing septic system. So to start with that, we'll talk about, I guess, some available areas, and then we'll move on to the status of the existing septic system with the precursor that at this exact moment in time, that existing septic system has potential to continue serving the needs of the park without replacement. So we evaluated a few different areas on the park. Essentially, when you come in the driveway, we focused our different exploratory borings to the left out towards the riding arena, towards the existing septic system, based on our understanding of future development plans for the park and not stepping on those plans. In the area where the existing septic system is, soils are suitable there for conventional in-ground type of systems, and there is some room available there should we need to do some slight expansion to our existing system or replace that existing system in place at some point in the future. Other areas investigated were off by the riding arena to the east or the river side of the riding arena. There's an area available there that had suitable soils where we could consider a replacement system. Those were in-ground soils encountered there. That area is not as large as some of the other areas identified. If we would go to the railroad track side of the riding arena where we have the meadow and walking trails, towards the more southerly area or towards the campground area of that, soils were suitable for in-ground systems. We had adequate contours that would allow installation of a system. As we moved farther to the north or towards that back property line, soils deteriorated where we were looking more at greater mound soils in that area. So we have 4 different areas to kind of think about moving forward. Which of those areas would be a priority is really going to need to be determined by the future expansion of the park and what we need. For the time being, I would say we should focus on what we have for a resource now in that existing system and maintenance of that system. So I'm going to kind of move on to what we discovered in our evaluation of that system. Yeah, if you've got it pulled up, maybe just jump to Appendix A and throw the map up there. The second map in Appendix A, which has the areas A, B, C, and D. Would probably be the easiest for understanding. And while he's doing that, I guess I'll kind of speak to some of the background on that existing system that we have. That existing system out there was approved in 1998 through the state as far as the plans for that system. At that point in time, it was sized for 18 campsites with an average design flow of 100 gallons per day. That would have been pulled from code sizing at that point in time. If we look at what newer research and data has shown, nowadays we are looking at many more campsites for the same size system as far as what we see for consumption and usage there. And I've got those numbers, I'll just jump to them a little later on. So that system was sized for about 18 campsites. Current code would suggest we could fit 40 campsites on that system with the day usage of the park. So we're sitting pretty good that way. There's a few 5,000-gallon septic tanks out there. There's some in-ground soil absorption trenches of pipe and rock there's 5 of them that are 5 foot by 160 foot wide, with giving us 4,000 square feet of absorption area. There's a pump tank moving the effluent from the septic tanks out to that system, some valve housings that would allow portions of that system, the drain field, to be turned off were they to have any ponding showing up in them. Nothing detrimental was seen in that system in the inspection. So there was a number of components we looked at in that system that were there functioning properly, but in need of repair. So the system, first and foremost, in looking at the soils, right where the existing system sits, the soils did not show any signs of redoxamorphic feature groundwater modeling, suggesting that it was being overloaded and wouldn't have ability to continue to treat the waste. The drain field itself appeared to be functioning properly. All of the vents and observations were dry, which is what we want to see. There's no ponding. The systems are typically designed to progressively fail, where you see ponding in the drain field, and that tells you that the life expectancy of the system's being met, and they progressively get wetter and wetter over time as their lifespan is exceeded. Things looked really good. We saw no signs of ponding out there at all, which tells us the system really appears to be functioning properly.
Can I ask, when you see that, can you kind of estimate how many years are left on it or not?
Not really. I mean, we can say we see and the reason being is the use can vary so much from season to season. But there was nothing seen that led us to believe that there's an imminent failure coming.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
So that being said,
I think there's some lack of use stuff there too. Even though it's a 28-year-old system, there's, like we've established, sometimes the park doesn't get used as much as it should. So, yeah.
yep, and that's right on for the longevity of this system. Something we do have going for this is even if we were to see some ponding occurring during the summer, the fact that we have an entire off-season where there's minimal to no usage of that system allows, what happens is there's a clogging mat of bacteria that will plug up these systems when they're getting overloaded with water or biological oxygen demand that they can't meet. It grows a bacteria and seals the system off, but that bacteria can die off and be broken down through natural processes as well. And so what we're seeing there is even if that is happening during the summer, we were inspecting this system in October, we didn't see any signs of that biological mat forming, growing, plugging the system up. So I think that there's enough rest periods, we're in good shape there. One of the biggest concerns I would have with that system, we've got a number of little items there where there's some vent caps, some observation pipes in the yard that have been broken. There's some manholes where the risers have been damaged and could allow some surface water intrusion. These are all maintenance issues that are relatively minor as far as the system goes. Jack had provided me with water meter data, and in looking at that water meter data, things looked really good out there for the majority of the data available. We only had a few months' data, not an entire year to look at, but we also had Ashley for the Arts, which is the big peak usage, which is kind of what I would look at as a designer and of septic systems as my biggest concern, what happens in those peak usage periods. During that peak usage period, We do see an overloading of the system that weekend based upon the water meter data. However, when we look at remedies to that, there's some real simple, cost-effective solutions versus saying, let's build out this septic system as large as possible and make it so it's designed to take that amount of water every day. No, let's just look at that peak flow and manage that peak flow instead to have a cost-effective approach. So that being said, we are seeing, basically we can take peak flows up to 1,200 gallons per day and be within the design parameters of that system. The only time we were crossing that design parameter was on the Ashley for the Arts Weekend, and I guess I didn't bring that exact number, but it was around 3,000 gallons, I believe, for a peak flow we were seeing, which is about 3 times what that system's designed for. Those surge events.
3,800.
Or 3,800,
Is our
almost
current
4.
tank, yeah.
Oh, the tank, yep. So that's far exceeding the design capacity of that system. What would happen in that instance, the way a system's designed, basically our septic tanks are supposed to take all of the solids and fats, oils, and greases that go down the drains, hold them and allow them to break down in those septic tanks and allow a clearer effluent to make its way out into the drain field. When we get this peak loading of the system, what happens is we're flushing additional suspended solids, fecal matter, other debris out into the drain field, and now we're asking that debris to be broken down in the drain field, which was not designed to break down really anything but the clearer liquid. And that type of event puts an additional oxygen demand on the drain field and causes an anaerobic bacteria to grow and seal up that system. So there's a number of ways we can mitigate against those peak flows, but we can put in bigger tanks and hold that additional peak flow and put in additional pumps and time dose it and release it slowly over time. That's one avenue. We could have a lot more drain field out there and just be able to take it when it comes, or we can do simply maintenance of pumping those tanks before those big events. We have, for tanks out there, about 10,000 gallons worth of storage capacity in those tanks. If we can pay attention, because we have a septic tank and a pump tank out there that are both 5,000 gallon tanks. So if we put into our management plan that these are our big weekends, our big events, and we pump those tanks before those events, we don't even have to see a single gallon of waste make it out to those drain fields, which would allow us to have more capacity used safely with that system, where if we really get on our proper management plan and have water data for more events, more big weekends when they happen, we see weekends like Ashley for the Arts expand for a very low dollar amount, which is maintenance that should really be done every year anyway. Pumping those tanks is great for the system. We can mitigate that without having to install additional capacity. So that's, I think, the biggest takeaway from what we looked at from my standpoint, other than the minor system components which are documented elsewhere in the report, as far as some broken risers, manholes, replacement of a filter that's met its serviceable life. If we have maintenance that is planned for these big events, I don't see a reason we should be spending money to replace a system at this point in time, or to even, for that matter, expand it. But if that maintenance isn't happening, if we don't have the ability to have that be part of our regular operations, then yes, we should be thinking about the more expensive options. So I think that's the biggest single point I wanted to make here today to the committee. Second to that is really in those areas we identified to think about if in the future you end up with more sewered sites for campers, if you, what you're doing to set aside one of those areas and have it in your master plan so that as things progress, you have a cost-effective solution. We really would choose that area, I would say, based upon what the next step of development is that requires additional capacity. So that's a little bit of a gray area for me to answer right now to say which area is the best area. But for minor expansion, minor repairs, the cheapest, most cost-effective thing is going to be try to fit a little additional drain field right where the drain field is now, add on to it, rather than a complete new system. Now, if we're doing something different, like saying out in the field to the north or left as you come in the drive, that we were going to be putting in a bunch of sewered RV sites or something like that, well, at that point in time, I'd probably be suggesting the most cost-effective area to go would be in that area C, which if you can scroll a little bit, they can see where that is. Because that would allow a separate collection system for that separate use, adequate area to put it in, expand it, and allow for the piping and tankage to be placed such that it's more cost-effective than running everything back over near the park shelters first.
Can you, like what area are we in so that I get,
We are in,
okay, the rectangle. Okay, thank you.
so
Emery, is the existing site, Site A?
the existing site is Site A, yes.
Thank you. That's what I assumed.
And just with how things fit in Site A, I wanted to kind of point out, we have that gravel drive that kind of cuts across Area A and the volleyball court. If we think about that drive as something that in our future development, how those drives are going to be, if we can kind of curve that drive differently, access differently, that entire area becomes available for replacement or expansion. We just don't want to be driving across our septic system right now about where the standalone A of Area A is. There's traffic that has been going across that. That was something else that was a suggestion in the report, is we get some signage up to inform the public to stay off, or possibly some fencing around the septic system. Compaction to the soil significantly reduces its ability to infiltrate that water, and it doesn't take many trips across to compact something. When a vehicle goes across a site, usually about, I forget the statistics, but something like 80% of the compaction that will occurs in the first trip across, versus multiple trips. So. Yep, so it's something we want to be cognizant of with this system, that we are preventing the public from trafficking across it. Also with the volleyball court there in Area A, or any of these areas, I guess I'd like to suggest low impact usage like volleyball above a septic system is not going to be a problem. We still have those areas where we place the septic available to use for something like a volleyball court, even if there was a septic system under them. The same with walking trails, meadows. We can have a lot of use that we don't have to just think of that as a wasted area once we put it in. Open space uses are very compatible on top of those septic systems. Right. Yep, don't park in Area A. And I guess let's not put parking in an area we're going to set aside for a future septic system. We want to avoid compaction in those areas.
In that, the new areas that are identified right by the horse arena. So compaction, like where we have the rodeo. So, they do drive into the rodeo area to drop off, and then, they bring in the stands for people to sit in and things. So I'm assuming they'd be bringing in large trucks to do that. So that's still an area that I'd wonder.
Which would, and I think that's kind of what was designated Area B, between the rodeo area and the water on the kind of east side of that. And that area, well, we do have suitable soils. I would have concerns with, if we did place a septic system there to pick up some RV park, I'd have concerns about its compatibility with the current use in that area. But it seems like off to between the tracks and the arena, that area did not appear to be trafficked regularly. Is that?
It's just the side closest to the river.
Yep.
The side closest to the river was where the traffic was going in and out. Yeah, so there is definitely potential on that other side of the arena.
And we're fortunate really that it's relatively sandy soil here, and that compaction at the depths we're looking at is less likely in the sandier ground than if it was a silt loam or clay loam soil.
Okay.
So I don't know, Jack, if you want me to go over what those photos are.
Sure.
All very minor repairs that were touched on in the report, but we've got some cleanouts that potentially have been, as in photo 1, maybe hit by a lawnmower or something. They're just PVC pipes that are broken. Nothing that's super costly to repair, but also kind of important to prevent a kid from sticking a pop can down there and plugging our pipes up, creating problems. We've got the manholes and risers, which in photo 2, that one, actually, if I had to guess what happened, the damage in that makes me think it was probably impacted by either a lawnmower or a snowplow or something. That's near the cloth shelter, that manhole in photo 2. And I would just suggest that whoever's plowing snow out there is kind of trained to be aware of that, and perhaps some protective posts be put in, something to prevent them from pushing snow into that cover, because I highly suspect that was an impact that caused the damage to that. We should probably repair that cover as a county, just because it will allow surface water intrusion, and the locks on that particular cover are no longer viable. And every year in Wisconsin, we see some unfortunate news story of some little kid somehow getting one of those covers, which is amazing because of what they weigh, off because they weren't locked, and falling in and dying. So, it's real important, and for the most part, all of our locks were there, except I think on this damaged one, the chain was broke off. When that's replaced, that'll also take care of, all of these covers are required to have warning labels on them. Some of those warning labels on our covers were faded and no longer readable, just as part of state code. That's a requirement saying that it's dangerous and should not be entered without proper personal protective equipment. When you buy a new cover, it's on there. Otherwise, the tank manufacturers have those covers very cheaply available, and they could be adhered to the existing risers.
Did you think the damage when you saw it on the cap there was from, you said like a mower, or from maybe snow plowing?
And I wasn't there to see it occur, but I would guess snow plowing on that one. I was just looking at how the road lines up and saying if they're pushing stuff farther past that entrance to the shelter, that it looked to me like the logical spot where someone would go and hit it with a snow plow.
Yeah.
So that's photo 2. I guess I can jump through those other photos with you. Photo 3, well, that's just indicating the shape of the warning labels on the covers, that they should probably be replaced. And photo 4 is showing the actual effluent filter in that system. Those effluent filters have a tendency, they were built where all of the components of them were not corrosion resistant, and that particular filter, I would say, has met its life expectancy, where it should be replaced, because what we tend to see happen is they just fall apart because the metal screws that hold them together corrode. And I had recommended a Polylock 525 filter for that. There's other brands out there as well, but they are just a very common filter that's readily available and cost effective that would meet your flow for gallons to replace that with. And same with the little maintenance issues in photo 5. When we're looking at our RV dump station, we are seeing that the curb around that dump station is broken, again allowing both the opportunity for waste to get outside the dump station when someone's dumping, as well as surface water to intrude into there. Simple maintenance items that, will become part of the overall maintenance that's happening when you have personnel that are knowing to look for them, report them, and have the authority to get them repaired as they occur. On that, I guess the other item I wanted to speak to with the RV dump station is there had been talk that there has been some problems over time with plugging on that. And I spoke with Jack about this already, but I think that based on my observations and discussions with Josh Aberly as well, we tend to think that it's simply a maintenance item, a usage item. When the piping leaves that dump station, it has to travel all the way around behind the shelter back to the septic tank. It's a long run, and if a piece of toilet paper gets left behind as the water flows over that 100-plus feet run of pipe, it's a piece of debris waiting there to plug, where really as part of the general dump station usage, we would like the public to turn on the water and flush it after they empty their tank. And so it could be a simple item that park personnel on a busy weekend just make sure when they're there and have a moment, they run a little water down that drain, and that's more than likely going to prevent those problems. Photo 6 is just another observation pipe out in the drain field area where it's good someone's made an effort to prevent debris from going down in there, but it's just duct tape over the pipe, pretty easily damaged. And I have seen time and time again, it's one of kids' favorite things to stuff stuff down open pipes. So we should get a cap on there. We see the vent pipes, that vent pipe, the second one in, it was broken. It was kind of standing there on its own. I laid it on its side for the sake of the photo, just to emphasize that the actual PVC was broken, and set it back in when we were done. But again, you know, gluing a coupling on to protect that system. And photo 8 is showing the tracks where vehicles had been using a travel path across that system.
I think our guys have been using that too.
Well,
Our workers.
Well, so it's good to get them educated that we should stay on our trails, or if we're going to be off trail, avoid the septic area. So I'm certainly, if I tried to give a pretty good summary here without getting into the weeds too far, but if there's additional questions here from the committee, I'm happy to entertain them.
Additional questions?
Then we do have an invoice from High Cliff for $4,750, and guess that should probably be motioned to get High Cliff paid for their work, and we'll continue to take High Cliff's suggestions, and then Emery had suggested working with Simmons and Aberly, so like I had said before, we might have to put some things out to bid, but would like to continue to, work with Josh, but there might be some potential that we've got to, get the project out for everybody, but they have been doing the plumbing out there for 30 years or so.
And these repairs are all relatively minor that we talked about, where you shouldn't be seeing a real significant dollar amount. Probably the two most expensive repairs are replacement of that manhole and riser, and the filter itself. And and certainly we have a large number of good plumbers in the area, conscientious plumbers, where, I'm not trying to take anything away from Aberly, but just saying the reason I recommended him is because he has the history with the park.
So with that, Jack, I'd like to move to pay the $4,750 for the Petrick Park septic proposal, so we have that taken care of. Is there a second?
I second. This is Renee.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we pay for Emery Palmer's plan for the Petrick Park septic proposal. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we shall proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to pay the bill for the Petrick Park septic proposal, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition? Seeing none, motion passes. We will pay the amount for the proposal. Thank you for your patience, Emery, too, and waiting for the rest of our meeting. We appreciate that.
Feel free to reach out to me if there's any other questions that come up.
Thanks for your time, Emery. Appreciate the work.
Is there anything additional that we want to look at as far as the future? I know we don't have anything else that we have to do, but there was a suggestion to contract to make the repairs for the system was in the proposal also. Consider the availability of replacement areas and incorporate them in the future plans. Does anybody want to comment or question on that while Emery is here? Seeing none, thank you, and we will proceed to the National Play Area Project Update with Jack.
Yeah, so I'll be brief with this. Was gonna go through the slides today, but don't see the need for that. So if you want a review of park slides, we had a great meeting in January with Phil that will give you all the info you need. So that was kind of our meeting where we went over what we were going to do for the park. So I'd encourage, if you want a refresher, watch that January PTED meeting. A link, we had that meeting that I've suggested a couple times with Tom on the 29th, and things went well. We ended up sending him a letter with kind of an update to the deed that is out of compliance currently. So we're working through things with Tom, and things I think went very well with him. And that video of the January meeting was sent to him on the 28th. There was a kind of a condition in the letter that's going to be revised that he was going to be here in February for a formal meeting. So kind of went away from that idea, and then we went forward with, meeting with Tom and making sure he got the information. So I had mentioned that meeting that we had with the DNR. Phil and I were able to meet with our grant contact, Grace Michelson's, and she kind of explained the lock-on funding for the state of Wisconsin. And there is only 2 to 3 potential projects or the money line of about $600,000 for all projects in Wisconsin involving playgrounds for Knowles Nelson's. There's 2 things with Knowles Nelson: stewardship and lock-on. So playground stuff kind of falls into this lock-on stuff, this lock-on funding, and then there is some other stewardship opportunities that might be available that Phil and I will continue to work through. So that fundraising strategies will continue to facilitate that. It'll probably be me working with some of these county board members and just getting some ideas, and then going out to the community. And we had talked about some things in the last meeting when it came to ideas at like posting up at the Wanik Center, or just doing some more public information sessions. So we'll work through that type of thing, try to identify the right type of people, and go forward. But do we have any questions on that? If not,
Jack, this is Renee. Just a quick question. You had mentioned a park in Eau Claire that has similar playground equipment, and I don't recall what that is. Can you remind me?
yeah, I would say similar playground equipment, but there is like 1 to 2 elements that are the same. But they do have, it's called Cannery Park in Eau Claire, and they're also looking into some type of Trek Park, which is already established. So I think they're looking to open that pretty soon here, and it's kind of by that brewing project. So it's a nice little area there. So that'd be a
Thank you.
cool project to look into for ours. All right.
So that's it in the update for Natural Park?
Yeah, I don't need to go through the slides, so let's
All right.
continue to move on.
Then next on the agenda is the amending the Petrick Park Master Plan discussion, possible action. Is there anything to present before I read the resolution?
No, I think both items, this is kind of a twofer. So we had established that with changing the scope of the project, with grant writing, we need to look into our master plan, how the park was planned, and our county outdoor recreation plan. It's not something that's been talked about, and I was kind of seeing it when I was looking over grant stuff. I'm like, oh boy, we better get a move on this. So what I had proposed in these next two things is kind of this master plan should be revised to include kind of the scope of change from a recreational pond to a natural play area. So it can be indicated when we write for the grant that this was established and we can include this resolution. But that was just my thought. When seeing the stuff, we've got a rec pond in there, and then it was identified that this isn't going to be the project, and it's number one on our Petrick Park master plan. So, taking that project area and moving it, I'll take this resolution and kind of make the changes in the documents as needed so they're ready for the grant.
All right, the resolution is written as follows. Amending the Trempealeau County's 2022-2026 outdoor recreation plan to reflect the changes in Petrick Park Master Plan, whereas in 2022, the development of the Trempealeau County Outdoor Recreational Plan and Petrick Park Master Plan were completed, and whereas the original Petrick Park Master Plan identified potential projects which have been eliminated from consideration or have been modified, particularly the shift from the originally planned recreational pond to development of the natural play area, and whereas in 2024, the project scope for Petrick Park was revised to prioritize the creation of natural play area, necessitating an update to the Petrick Park Master Plan to ensure alignment with previously identified objectives. And whereas the 2022-2026 Trempealeau County Outdoor Recreation Plan should reflect the updated scope of the work plan for Petrick Park as identified in the revised Petrick Park Master Plan in order to maintain consistency and to remain eligible for state and federal grant funding opportunities, including the Knowles-Nelson Grant opportunity for 2025. And whereas the revision of the Petrick Park Master Plan are critical for advancing development of the park and ensuring that the project aligns with the goals and strategies outlined in Trempealeau County Outdoor Recreational Plan. Now, be it resolved that the Trempealeau County Board authorize the update of the Petrick Park Master Plan to reflect the shift from recreational pond to a natural play area and directs those revisions be incorporated into the 2022-2026 Trempealeau County Outdoor Recreation Plan to ensure alignment with the Trempealeau County goals and eligibility of the 2025 Knowles-Nelson Grant, introduced by the Park, Tourism, and Economic Development Committee.
And one thing, sorry, hopefully we can go on with you reading the resolution, but I think we do need to amend the current master plan beforehand. I think that needs to come to a vote since it's an agenda item. And then we would make sure that the resolution goes through if that proceeds.
So what we're going to address at the time is amending the Petrick Park Master Plan. Is there a motion for amendment?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
This
second
is Jean, I'll second.
that. Jean, go ahead.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we amend the Petrick Park Master Plan
To include natural play area.
to include natural play
project
area.
change or something.
Do we
of
want to
those
strike
sorts.
the recreational pond?
I that was my inkling. That's what I thought would probably be the right decision moving forward.
So the amendment will be stated as that we strike recreational plan from the Petrick Park Master Plan and insert the outdoor natural play area. Is that correct, what you want to have said?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, just so it's what you're recommending, Jack.
Yep.
Because you're recommending it.
Yep.
Is there any discussion?
It's tough, yeah.
Kevin? I saw you highlight, so I
No.
thought you. All right, just checking before we go. All those in favor of amending the Petrick Park Master Plan that we strike recreational pond and insert the natural play area, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition? Seeing there's no opposition, we will have it recorded as amended. The motion passes.
Good job, Kevin, saying that all out at once.
Thanks, Sheedy. It's kind of
Nicely
fun
done.
when you get a chance to finally be doing the chair. I'm usually the one that's a parliamentarian, so this is cool.
That was a complex one too, so I appreciate it, Kevin.
Not a problem. We can get it taken care of. The next thing would be to discuss the resolution that I have previously read. Is there a motion on the resolution?
I'll move to approve the resolution to amend the outdoor recreation plan.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we support the resolution to amend the 2022-26 Trempealeau County Outdoor Recreation Plan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition? The resolution passes. We shall pass it to the full board.
Thank you.
Next agenda item, event agreement discussion with possible action. Jack?
So this was something that came to the committee again in December. The decision was tabled at that point, and then in January, things were not ready in the document. So this is, back to February here. So what we had discussed in December was how this is we have a special event permit and then an event agreement for our bigger events where we might have some liability concerns out at the park. And this would be for a more conducive document. We've had a couple wedding reception requests for September of '25. So this is kind of why this document was created, to create a more inclusive document that still covers the county liability-wise. So we will continue to have this ironed out, but we do think it's at a good point in between the language revision that have been done and hopefully another review from Corporation Counsel. They have reviewed this document once, but it does need to be reviewed again. So I think that should be somewhat in the motion, but I would like, considering that there is, some people that are wanting to get some receptions planned, I would want to keep them in consideration with this decision. We had suggested it be between 216 and 1,000. The 216 number is our shelter reservation number, and the 1,000 is the decision we made for the rodeo in 2025. So we're thinking that this event agreement should be in between with the security deposit attached. So.
Questions or comments on the event agreement that was in your folder? We did look at it in January. If someone has a question before we do any action on this motion.
And there's a
This
price,
is-
price attached to it, so we've got to figure out as a committee what the right price is.
All right.
And I would have a question to that. Are we going to have any costs for cleanup after an event? I imagine the parties who rent the facility might do some cleanup, but will we have some cleanup? And, again, comparing, I guess maybe some people might have an idea what other,
Yep.
venues might cost.
There's a waste management section in the document, so we'll be referring to that waste management plan, and if there's any extra needed, that would be something that's internal, and that their event fee that we're trying to motion would cover.
Oh, I mean, the fee or the, down payment?
Right.
Because the fee would be to cover the rental of the facility, right?
Rental of the facility, and I was kind of thinking the work attached. It's a part of me and the Mark's job to be able to adhere to events at the park, but it is the event goers to do some extra stuff. So I do kind of hear you, Renee, maybe having that in there.
Thank you.
Is there suggestions at the amount then? Do people have ideas in mind that what we should charge as far as between that $216, which was a shelter rent, and the $1,000 for the rodeo?
I don't think you can, other venues, I don't think you can rent much of anything less than $500. Facilities may be different, just a thought.
And the security deposit for our shelter currently is $250. So that's another maybe thing to keep in mind.
How often has it been rented out?
So we had about anywhere from 20 to 25 rentals this last year, half being, I think 12 to 13 being volunteer groups or events. But I think we were around 15 paid rentals last year.
So what you're saying was it's been $250 to rent. Is that what you said?
$200 to rent with a $250 security deposit, with which we only had to take once this last year.
What would you support, Jack?
I would support something in between. Like, I do agree with the suggestions Renee suggested, and anything over $500, and also keeping our security deposit in mind, maybe little $50 add-on. So I guess my suggestion would be anywhere from about $500 fee with like maybe a $300 security deposit. But
And just to clarify, the
or
security
more
deposit.
for the security.
And the security
Considering,
deposit is refunded, Jack, right?
yeah, correct. So we could do more since it's like an event. So maybe $300 to $500 for a security deposit, and then like a $500 fee, or $750. Like, it could be anywhere from $500 to $750. Like, I'm comfortable with anything in there, just because there is more when it comes to our work in this for events, and just making sure that we're okay in letting the public know that there's something going on. So there is a little bit more attached, so I'm open.
Seems like 500 has been a number that's been popping up as the minimum. And then we can see if it doesn't cover our costs, that we go back and, okay, now we've got to increase it, because I don't want to throw a number out there that we just guess. And if we know that 500 has been in the ballpark, that's where I'm sitting right now. And the deposit of 300 would be my recommendation.
I agree.
Do we need a motion on this item then?
Yeah, because this language has to get approved with a review by Corp Counsel. She
Right.
needs to do a second review of the changes I made. And then the price of 500 and 300, if that's what we establish, that needs to be in the motion as well. So review by Corp Counsel, price, and document.
So basically,
I'll make that motion.
basically what you're saying is to go from $200 to $500? Am I understanding that correctly? For the rent?
It's about 216, But this is a document, like an event agreement, where there's a little bit more that is probably on us, and we have to have a contract that goes around it because of a special event. So they have to, there's more communication required when it comes to something like a wedding reception, rather than a typical, just normal event out there. Yeah. So basically, this document covers that, and when we do get calls for special events, we'll have two great documents to be able to use in the future, instead of not having anything established like we have in the past.
So we have a motion on that from Kevin to move that specific to the amount that we allocated there of the 300 and 500. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll make that motion. This is Jean.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion that's been proposed? Seeing none, we shall go. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm
ahead,
wondering if
Renee.
we should put in, okay, I'm wondering if we should put in the agreement that, well, that wouldn't necessarily, no, I take that back. Because what I was going to suggest is an annual review of these amounts, but that wouldn't necessarily have to be in the agreement with the potential client.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff's ongoing and newly established, so, but just like we kind of did with like campsite pricing this year, it's an ongoing thing that we'll deal with if we deem necessary, or I deem necessary.
If we need to establish a policy that we would do that, then for sure, Renee, so we had a review time down. Further discussion on the motion? Further discussion? If not, let's proceed to vote. All those in favor of establishing with the event agreement the price of $500 per event with a $300 deposit, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those in opposition, no. Motion carries. We will have the event established at $500 per major event and $300 deposit. Anything else, Jack, we need to touch on that, or are we good? Awesome.
I guess, I don't know if the language being approved necessarily needs to be in the motion.
Could he use the mic, please?
I don't know if the language being, because it's a new document, I think I got my special event permit approved, so maybe that being in the motion, just the language and having that reviewed by Corp Counsel one more time.
All right, sounds good. Next agenda item is future agenda items. Outdoor rec was listed. Is there anything specific with that we need to address?
No, it just got moved to the next month because last meeting and I had said we're hopefully get something back to you with like a water trail update and what's been done, what hasn't. Probably the next month before we can get that report out.
All right. Does any member have any items that would properly put on the agenda?
Yeah, I do.
Rich does.
I'm new to this committee, so I'm learning, and I have a lot more to learn. But I would wondering if you could bring to the committee, I would like to see in the last couple of years, the usage of the park.
Sure.
On a weekly basis, if you have that stats, and how many special events there's been, in them sort of things.
Yeah, I can. You want like just an overall schedule of like the year type thing of like what's.
Didn't you share this information before, right? I thought we went through this because we were looking at usage and it's not been real heavily used, and so I thought we were.
Maybe just send it to me if the rest of the committee
Yeah,
has it.
Yeah.
I thought you had shared that.
I think we
can-
got it last
yeah.
fall. We got it that you're
Yeah.
talking about, Rebecca.
Maybe you can pull that data back up again.
Yeah, did we? I don't remember talking about park usage in the fall, but maybe we did. I'll look
I-
into it.
No, Jack, you did a whole report. I think I asked for it and you did a spreadsheet, or Amy did it.
I've got
Because
a
we want to
copy
know
of it.
income, outcome, and something like that. I believe Amy did it.
I recall that too. I think it had to do with looking at possible costs.
Okay.
But if you find it, if you want to send it to me, that'll satisfy me. Thank
That
you.
sounds good.
Hello, Beth. I saw you show up on the computer. Is there comments that you would like to make?
No, I have a Zoom meeting with the ADRC coming up, so I'm just getting ready.
All right, thank you, Beth. Thanks for visiting.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Is there any conflicts or challenges with the next meeting being March the 4th, 2025?
No conflict.
Seeing no conflicts, we'll establish that as a continual meeting date, March the 4th, 2025. And seeing that there's no additional information or motions, anybody have any additional information we need to cover before we adjourn? If not, the meeting is adjourned.